Welcome to the deep dive. You ready to get a little weird with it today?
Oh, always.
Okay, good, because today we're diving deep into the world of commercial seaweed.
Ooh, seaweed.
And you might be thinking, oh, that slimy stuff on the beach. But trust me, it's way more than that.
Way more.
This stuff is everywhere, and I mean everywhere. From the food we eat to get this bioplastics.
You're not kidding. I've been digging into some reports on this, and it's seriously fascinating stuff.
So we're talking about a global market, big money, and some surprising applications.
Huge market, absolutely. We're talking billions, actually.
It wins with a B.
With a B. Like in 2025, the global commercial seaweed market was estimated at, get this, USD 21.64 billion.
Wow. And this isn't a fad, is it?
Nope, this is just the tip of the iceberg. Projections show it ballooning to USD 41.87 billion by 2033.
So basically doubling.
Basically, yeah. We're looking at a compound annual growth rate, CAGR, of 8.60% between 2025 and 2033.
So those are serious numbers.
Absolutely. And the reason behind this boom, it's all about what this report calls hydrocolloids.
Hydrocolloids. Okay, I'll admit that sounds a bit like science fiction to me.
Well, it's more science than fiction, actually.
But you're going to explain it in a way that even I can understand, right?
Absolutely. Imagine substances that can thicken or stabilize liquids naturally. That's essentially what hydrocolloids are, and seaweed is a goldmine of them.
I'm intrigued. What kinds of things are we talking about?
Agar and carrageenan are the big ones. Agar, mostly from red seaweed, is like a super gelling agent. It sets desserts, helps grow bacteria in labs, super versatile.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
Then you have carrageenan, also from red seaweed, but this one's all about smooth textures. So think dairy alternatives, processed foods, all that good stuff. They're what makes seaweed so valuable.
Makes sense. So today we're on a mission, right?
We are.
We're going to map this massive global market, figure out where it's exploding, understand what's driving this growth, and uncover all those unexpected ways seaweed is, well, infiltrating our lives, right?
Exactly.
All based on this juicy report you dug up.
Let's do it. So as we said, this global seaweed market is already pretty massive at over USD 21 billion back in 2025 and heading towards almost USD 42 billion by 2033 at that steady 8.60% growth rate. And the report's pretty clear. These hydrocolloids are like the rocket fuel behind this whole thing.
It's not just some tiny niche market, it's huge. But the report also made it clear that this market looks very different depending on where you are in the world. Can we zoom in on those regional variations?
Absolutely. Let's start with 2025. Asia Pacific, or APAC as it's often called, is like the king of the seaweed castle, holding, get this, about 90% of the global market share.
90%, that's insane.
Right, a market size of USD 19.48 billion. Even with that dominance, it's still projected to grow at a healthy 8.4% CAGR between 2025 and 2033.
I'm trying to wrap my head around that. Which countries in the APAC region are leading the charge? What makes them such seaweed powerhouses?
Well, the report highlights a few big names. China's at the front of the pack with a market size of USD 8.18 billion in 2025, projected to grow at 7.9% CAGR. Japan's close behind at USD 2.69 billion with a 6.9% CAGR. Then there's South Korea at USD 2.34 billion, growing at a 7.5% CAGR. And India is making waves with USD 1.95 billion and a whopping 10.3% CAGR.
So it makes sense, right? Many Asian cultures have used seaweed in their diets for centuries, but what's fueling this recent growth spurt in each of these countries?
It's a mix of factors. China and South Korea, they already have huge seaweed production and consumption. They're like the veterans. India, on the other hand, is seeing a growth spurt because they're putting a lot of effort into expanding seaweed cultivation and using their expensive coastal resources more effectively. It's all about boosting that production.
Okay, so Asia Pacific is the big player. What about the rest of the world? North America seems to be making some serious moves.
Yeah, North America's got a good chunk over 5% of the global market. In 2025, it was sitting at USD 1.08 billion. And here's the kicker. It's projected to grow faster than the global average at a CAGR of 10.6%.
Really? So it's catching up.
Catching up fast.
And when we talk about North America, I'm guessing the U.S. is the biggest player?
Definitely. In 2025, the U.S. market was at USD 853.7 million, growing at a CAGR of 10.4%. Canada's at USD 129.84 million with a slightly higher CAGR of 11.4%. And Mexico's coming in at USD 98.46 million with a CAGR of 11.1%. So while the U.S. is the big dog, Canada and Mexico are nipping at its heels.
So why is North America so hot for seaweed all of a sudden? Is it just people eating more sushi?
It's definitely not just sushi. The report points to the plant-based food boom as a major driver. More people are going vegetarian, vegan, or just trying to eat less meat. And seaweed. It's the perfect plant-based alternative for lots of things.
Makes sense.
Plus, seaweed farming is becoming more efficient, and there's a bigger push for sustainable, eco-friendly farming. So seaweed ticks a lot of boxes for conscious consumers.
Right. Let's jump across the pond now. What's happening with seaweed in Europe?
Europe's got over 3% of the global market, a respectable USD 649.2 million in 2025. And it's projected to grow at a CAGR of 9.9%. So smaller than APAC and North America, but still nothing to sneeze at.
What's driving that European growth?
What's interesting, Europeans are getting more aware of the health and environmental benefits of seaweed. That, plus the whole hydrocolloid thing, plus a strong push for sustainable products, all play a role.
Are there any countries leading the pack in Europe?
Yeah, Germany's pretty big, with a market size of USD 128.54 million and a 10.1% CAGR. The UK is not far behind at USD 109.07 million, growing at 10.7%. The report suggests this growth is because of, well, more ways to use seaweed, people understanding its health benefits, and that general eco-conscious vibe that's big in Europe.
Makes sense. So we've covered the big players. What about South America, the Middle East, and Africa? They're smaller now, but what's their potential?
This is where it gets exciting. South America, even though it's only got a little over 1% of the market at USD 173.12 million in 2025, has the highest projected growth rate, a whopping 12.4% CAGR.
Wow, why so high?
Well, they've got endless coastlines, perfect weather for growing seaweed, and a growing demand for plant-based and healthy foods. Brazil and Argentina are the ones to watch there, with KGRs of 13% and 13.3% respectively.
So they're about to explode.
Pretty much. Then there's the Middle East. They're about 0.70% of the market, USD 151.48 million, with a projected CDR of 10.1%. Growth there is linked to a rising demand for health foods and, you guessed it, those hydrocolloids. Saudi Arabia and the UAE are the big players there.
What about Africa?
Africa's the smallest right now, about 0.50% of the market, USD 108.2 million. But it's got huge potential with a KTR of 10.4%. It's got tons of coastline and a growing demand, especially for seaweed as a natural fertilizer. South Africa and Nigeria are the key players there.
Okay, so Asia Pacific's leading the pack, but there's a ton of action happening all over the world. The report also breaks things down by the types of seaweed, the forms it comes in, and how it's used. Can we dig into that a bit?
Of course. So there are three main types of seaweed: red, brown, and green. Right now, red seaweed's the most popular.
Why is that?
Well, it's used a lot in food, like nori for sushi, that's red seaweed. It's also where we get those superstar hydrocolloids, agar and carrageenan.
And what about brown and green seaweed?
Green seaweed is actually the fastest growing. It's got potential not just as food, but also as a sustainable ingredient in animal feed, which could really help reduce the environmental impact of livestock farming. And some exciting research is happening with using it to make biofuel, which could be a game changer in renewable energy. Brown seaweed is the third type, but the report didn't go into as much detail about it.
Got it. So we've got all these types of seaweed. How are they actually processed and sold? What forms do they come in?
Well, you've got liquid, powdered, and flake. Right now, powdered seaweed is the most common.
Why is powdered seaweed so popular?
Versatility. It's easy to use in all kinds of products, from food and cosmetics to pharmaceuticals. It's a really convenient way to add those nutrients and beneficial compounds.
I can see how that would be useful for companies. What about flake seaweed?
Flake seaweed is growing super fast. People see it as less processed, so it keeps more of its natural goodness. And that's a big selling point for health-conscious consumers who want natural ingredients. Liquid seaweed's the third form, but we don't know as much about its uses from the report.
So we've got all these different types of seaweed processed in different ways. Now the big question is, what are we doing with all of it? Where is it all going?
Well, right now, the food industry is the biggest user of commercial seaweed. No surprise there, it's been used in food for ages. But it's also used in everything from fertilizers and animal feed to cosmetics and even medicines.
So lots of uses. But the report also said that bioplastics are the fastest growing application.
That's right. The demand for eco-friendly alternatives to traditional plastics is just exploding. And seaweed bioplastics are a fantastic solution. They're renewable, they break down naturally, and their carbon footprint is way lower than traditional plastics. Plus, as research improves, seaweed bioplastics are getting cheaper and better at replacing those pesky single-use plastics. So there's a lot of investment pouring into this area, and it's growing like crazy.
Is awesome news for the planet. Are there any other big uses for seaweed that the report mentions?
Yeah, it mentions a bunch: fertilizer, animal feed, cosmetics for those skin benefits, pharmaceuticals, even textiles, waste management, and water treatment. Basically, seaweed is a jack of all trades. And as research continues, we're bound to discover even more ways to use it.
It's amazing how much we can do with this one simple organism. So we've touched on a lot of factors that are driving this market growth. Can we summarize the key drivers?
Sure. First, those amazing hydrocolloids. They're in high demand across so many industries. Second, the rise of plant-based diets, especially in North America and Europe. Third, the general increase in seaweed's popularity as a food ingredient. Fourth, the growing focus on environmental sustainability, which seaweed farming fits perfectly. And finally, the growing recognition of seaweed's potential in medicine. So there are a lot of forces pushing this industry forward.
So tons of positive momentum. But are there any roadblocks or challenges that could slow things down? The report did mention some restraints.
Right. It mentioned two main ones. One is the high cost and the infrastructure needed to set up and run seaweed farms and processing plants. It's not cheap to get started. And the second is something the report called a lack of a need for cash market adoption.
Lack of a need for cash market adoption. That
Uh,
sounds a bit technical.
Yeah, basically it means that trading seaweed isn't as organized or standardized as other commodities. There aren't as many open, transparent exchanges. A lot of deals happen directly between buyers and sellers. This can make it hard for smaller producers to reach wider markets and can lead to less transparent pricing.
Okay, that makes sense. So with all this activity and potential, what does the competitive landscape look like? Are there a few big players controlling everything, or is it more spread out?
It's definitely competitive, with a mix of big global companies and smaller regional ones. The report named a few: Dow DuPont Inc., Cargill Inc., J.M. Huber, Corbion NV, Kerry Group Peelin, FMC Corporation, Acadian Sea Plants Limited, Gelimer SA, Ocean Harvest Technology Limited, and Roulier Group.
So a pretty diverse mix. What are these companies doing to stay ahead of the game?
Well, they're doing a few things. Many are investing in bigger production facilities to boost their output. They're also focusing on new processing methods to make things more efficient and create new high-value seaweed products. And many have wide product ranges and global distribution networks to reach more customers.
Sounds like a dynamic market. The report also mentioned a couple of recent developments.
Right. There was a partnership in July 2021 between Univar Solutions, a big global distributor of chemicals and ingredients, and Seaweed and Company, a company in Scotland. They teamed up to add innovative seaweed-derived ingredients to Univar Solutions' product line, focusing on sustainability, better flavors, and health benefits.
Smart move, capitalizing on that growing interest in seaweed. And there was something about a policy change in India.
Yeah, in August 2024, India's Niti Aayog, which is like their policy think tank, suggested that they extend the benefits of their farm support programs to seaweed farmers. They want to promote seaweed farming by giving farmers financial help and crop insurance, basically encouraging more people to jump on the seaweed bandwagon.
So even governments are recognizing the potential of seaweed. Okay, we've covered a ton of ground today. Can we sum up the key takeaways?
Of course. The commercial seaweed market is on fire, expected to nearly double from USD 21.64 billion in 2025 to almost USD 42 billion by 2033. Asia Pacific is leading the charge, but North and South America are growing super fast.
And the food industry is the biggest consumer right now, but those bioplastics are the rising star, showing how much people want sustainable alternatives.
Absolutely. And this growth is driven by the amazing versatility of seaweed, especially those hydrocolloids, the shift towards plant-based eating, and the growing focus on sustainability. There are challenges, sure, but the industry is buzzing with innovation and expansion.
You know, my big takeaway is that seaweed is so much more than just something you find on the beach. It's a massive, rapidly expanding global industry that's changing everything from the food we eat to the materials we use.
Couldn't have said it better myself. It's where marine biology meets cutting-edge technology and global trends. It's really fascinating stuff.
And that brings us to our final thought for you, dear listener. With seaweed growing like this and being so sustainable, what other unexpected industries do you think it could disrupt in the future? It's a big question, with huge implications for our planet and our economy. Something to ponder, right?
Definitely something to ponder.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the incredible world of commercial seaweed.
Until next time.